flooded with thousands of penguins. But most of the penguins are at sea. Late afternoon it comes back and flooded. The third biggest penguin colony in the world, Robben. But we almost lost our penguin colony on 2 occasions. The first time, when the Dutch came here 1652. The Dutch ate the penguins with cheese. And we had so many oil spills around the coastline here. The penguins survived. Still today, the third biggest colony in the world, Robben, to your right side. Now you see this little house opposite me with a red roof. The smallest prison in the entire world. Only one man was kept in that prison. The man who started the revolution in this country, 1960. The man the old government feared very much, if not the most. South Africans, his name. You say that? Robert Sobukwe. Robert Sobukwe was not kept with all the other prisoners. He was kept sole alone in this little house. The cages around the house, those were dog kennels. But the dog kennels were built after his time. It was only the single house on the entire plot of land. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to cut a very long story short. During the days of our struggle for freedom, we had 2 mainstream resistance, revolutionary movements in this country. The one is the ANC, where Mr. Mandela is a member of. South Africans, the other one. The PAC, Pan-Africanist Congress, where Sobukwe was the leader. On the 21st of March 1960, which is today, a sacred day in our calendar, public holiday, Human Rights Day. It was on that day, the 21st of March 1960, 51 years ago, when this man, Sobukwe, brought the entire country to a standstill. Thousands were arrested. Hundreds got killed. The entire country was in a total chaos. The army had to be called in. And it was on that day, 51 years ago, when government realized people are now prepared to die for their freedom, facing the bullets. When government realized the determination of the people, facing the bullets for their freedom, they quickly reopened Robben Island for political prisoners after the Second World War. And they immediately built a prison on that side, 51 years ago. They arrested Sobukwe too that day. 200 of its inmates were hanged, executed. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a terrible day in the history of South Africa. Sobukwe was given a 3-year sentence, which he first served on the mainland, Johannesburg. But when his 3 years were over 1963, the situation in this country was so explosive, they could not afford Sobukwe's freedom. At the time of his arrest, he was a professor at Wits University, linguistics, languages. Out of fear that the professor might start another uprising, they brought him to the island. And because he already served his sentence on the mainland, they couldn't mix him with the other prisoners. They put him in that little house, sole alone. He was not allowed to talk to anybody. Doctors, they say the 3rd year, when Sobukwe was eventually visited in there, his vocal cords, stem bundle, affected by not talking. Now, ladies and gentlemen, why is 21st of March so sacred in our calendar? Public holiday, Human Rights Day. It was on that day, 251 years ago, that the eyes of the world opened upon South Africa. The very first country to step in support, India. It was the Indian government first who took the South African case to the United Nations, exposed South Africa and its vicious apartheid policies to the rest of the world. Then the Dutch did. Now, I've been to the Netherlands myself in the 1960s. I remember very well. Before entering the supermarket down there in Leiden, an anti-apartheid movement person will stand on the outside with a stack of stickers. You take your sticker, straight into the supermarket, straight to the South African outspan oranges. You remember, outspan, silly something. You take your sticker, place it over the orange, and written on that sticker was, if you eat this orange, it would be as if you sucked the blood of a black man. Indeed, the start of sanctions against South Africa. The entire world immediately refused to trade with South Africa. My friend from USA. It was a Kodak film company. Pepsi Cola, Barclays Bank, to mention a few, withdrew his business from South Africa. Isolated the country further. Then the Irish stepped in, my Irish lady. In Ireland, there's a supermarket chain called the Dunn Stores. You perhaps know the store. On one rainy day, box loads of South African goods entered one of the stores. The entire workforce came to a standstill. They refused to work unless they removed all South African goods from the shelves. Many of those young Irish ladies lost their jobs for our freedom down here. 30 years later, when Mr. Mandela was invited to Ireland, they even had a function, he made sure, to invite those ladies to that function after 30 years, to say officially thank you to them for sacrificing jobs for our freedom here. My Irish lady. You can imagine the emotions that evening when Mr. Mandela called the ladies to the podium to receive their awards. Then the English stepped in. The other part of the fight against the old government. In those days you could have been the best of athletes, the best of sportsmen. If you are not white, you cannot make the national team of the country. Apartheid. Immediately after the Sebokwe uprising, when these all-white rugby Springbok teams would go to Twickenham in England, it was your communities that would invade the pitches, disrupt the South African games, the start of the Olympic boycotts against South Africa. The first country in the world that has refused to send their soccer teams to South Africa, our friends from Brazil. The first European country that has refused to send their soccer teams out here, our friends from Brazil. South Africa then was kicked out of the international sports arena, once again under the leadership of India. With the help of the Ethiopians, they threatened Tokyo Olympics in Japan. You allow South Africa to Japan, we're all going to walk out of the Olympics. They had no choice but to kick South Africa totally out of the international sports arena. The battle was on. They had to release Sebokwe from the island in 1969. After 6 years alone in there, never gave him his freedom. Banished him to a small town, central South Africa, called Kimberley. He was not allowed to leave the boundaries of the town. He died in 1978, age 54. Some books claim they poisoned Sebokwe in the eye, the forgotten year. The man who started it all, Robben, Sebokwe. Two, three very quick last points. Anybody from the Jewish faith perhaps on the bus here? Nobody. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the honor, I met Mr. Mandela personally. Various levels, various occasions. And just for your information, very few people alive today had the honor to have met Sebokwe. I met Sebokwe too. I was connected to his revolutionary movement, the Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC. But remember, the PAC was a banned organization. Most of our lives, our youth, we spent in underground. 1990, the old government unbanned us, we service, and I became the first official General Secretary of the PAC, of the Western Cape, the broader Cape Town area. Now that has put me to have worked under the spirit of a great icon, Sebokwe, my friend from Ethiopia. When you talk about the great giants of Pan-Africanism, when you go to West Africa, you talk about Kwame Nkrumah. Central Africa, Patrice Lumumba, down south, Sebokwe. But when you go up northeast, you talk about Emperor Haile Selassie. I have to end off, my friend from USA, lady. Your contributions to Sebokwe. While Sebokwe was in captivity, one great American politician came to South Africa in 1968. adopted his children. 3 boys and a girl when they were very small. Took them to America, educated them down there. And he never saw his children alive again. Now he was once the ambassador to the United Nations for America. Later the mayor of Atlanta.
Andrew Young.
You say, Sister Andrew Young. And not too long ago, I was close to Andrew Young in South Africa. Once here I get a call from a friend of mine. The children, Mr. Mandela again, was adopted by the governor of California. His governor again now.
Jerry Brown.
Jerry Brown. I have to end, my friends. Later years, a great American singer and actor sent a letter to United Nations. Promised United Nations, I shall never again perform any more concerts in South Africa unless they abolish apartheid. Now he was a singer who sung the song, I Did It My Way. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'll give the American lady out here, Frank Sinatra. The first time I heard of that name. Harry Belafonte, Stevie Wonder, the blind pianist, the great American tenor star Art Ashe, sponsored adopted children from the main prison again. Ladies and gentlemen, a very long list how the entire world came to our rescue. But the man who started it all, the forgotten hero, Sybil, endless I can talk about. Thank you.